I love how God works this out. We've been walking through this Sermon on the Mount series. We said we weren't going to skip. We weren't just going to do the section that I believe the church really highlights most of the time, that we were going to go through chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. And we're rounding it out, and we're going to be closing it out right around the new year, where it's talking to us about building a foundation. But what do you know that on this week, it ends up on Golden Rule. And that wasn't my plan. It actually was supposed to be earlier than this. But we had a few weeks where God moved and did something else and asked us to go a different direction. And so I think he had the perfect plan, because this week it lands on the Golden Rule of Matthew 7:12. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and prophets. And after listening to our kids' program, which I hadn't heard all the way through yet, their whole program is about love. Their whole program is about living a life of love, not just speaking the words, but truly loving. And we've been talking about, man, when God does those little things and says, hey, hold off, and then this is the week we're doing that, it shows you how many of the small details, all of them, that he has in his hands, and he has the perfect plan. And so when you read that, the golden rule that we've heard about, love others, do to others what you would have them do to you. And when he says, listen, for this sums up the law and the prophets, he's pulling right out of Leviticus, where it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And we've all heard the golden rule before, and it's easy to see how it connects right to Matthew 22. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest. But then he said, listen, the second is like it. Right after loving your God, he says, love your neighbor as yourself. The second greatest commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. So man, when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at all the different commandments in the Bible, all the different things that the Lord teaches us. He says, listen, all of it hangs on love. Loving God first, loving others second. And here's the kicker. He didn't say, pick who you love. He didn't say, love this category of people. He said, love. Live a life of love. All the others hang on this one. Think about that. What's that mean? When you look at other commandments, can I truly love and murder? Can I truly love and whatever you want to look at? Can I truly love and commit adultery or lie or steal or anything that he shows us? If I'm loving him first and loving others second, I don't even have to wonder whether those others will follow in my life. That will be the fruit of loving him. That will be the fruit of his love living out of us. That's exactly what our kids just taught us. Is Mrs. Higginsworth, who happened to be my daughter, who's been running around with that attitude for the last month practicing. I had to choose to love her. But that's what they just showed us, is that, we laugh at this program, we love this program, but that's life. How many people are you around that are Mrs. Higginsworth, that don't need our words anymore? They need our actions. They need love to be lived out in front of them. They need to be loved. So what are the keys in these two passages? We talked about it a little bit on Wednesday night in our new series, and it's a small part that we fail to look at many times when we're talking about these two passages. We see in both these places that if I don't realize my identity in Christ, if I don't love who he's created me to be, he tells me I can't truly love you. But we don't talk about that part. We talk about loving others, but we skip right over love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself. So what he's saying is, listen, if you don't love yourself and who I've created you to be, he's telling you, if you don't know and realize and live in the identity I've given you, there's no way you can love anybody else. If you're living out of that hurt identity that we talked about on Wednesday night, if you're living through those hurts, that low self-image, there's no way you're going to truly be able to love others. We can try, we can do it for a short amount of time. but we can't truly live that love. It says, love neighbor as yourself, and then it says, what you would have them do to you in the second passage. If I don't love myself, I don't know how to do that. It doesn't just say, hey, love others and degrade yourself, who I have created you to be, he says. I created you. I created you with a purpose and a destiny and a plan. So we have to love him first. Through loving him and him loving us, we understand who we are. We learn to love me that he's created me to be, and I'm able to love you. That equals very simply, I have no peace about who I am. I have no love for who I am. There's no way I can possibly love you. As I was studying, I realized some awesome things about the golden rule. If you study Scripture from a worldly point of view, you'll hear it called the ethic of reciprocity often. What's reciprocity mean? The practice of exchanging things with someone else for mutual benefit. They say this, and these are people that are much smarter than me, but they're looking at it from a worldly point of view. They say that, they call it that, because they say that rule is found in almost all world religions. But as I was studying, I found it fascinating as I was reading these different studies, that rule is not found in every religion. There's a very key difference, and I want to share that with you. When you look at whether it be Hinduism or Buddhism or Confucianism, there's a big difference. I want you to look up, what do we have in there? Hinduism. This is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. What other one do we have in there? Buddhism. Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Well, Michael, that sounds similar to the golden rule. There's a big difference, and I want to point it out to you. Those both, let's just look at those two for the lack of time. Those two are focusing from a negative perspective. They're a reactive rule. I want you to hear this. They're talking about not doing something. They're talking about don't do this negative action to someone else that you wouldn't want done to you. So if I just don't do something negative towards you, I'm fine by that rule. That's not the golden rule. That's not the golden rule. The golden rule, Jesus is asking us to do something. Not to just not do something, but to do something. He's asking us to live love. It's not just okay that I don't treat you badly because we're enemies. He's saying, I want you to love your enemies. That is a proactive rule. I'm not just okay by not doing something. He's saying, I want you to do something. I want you to love. I want you to love. There's a major difference when you look at those two sets of rules. It's proactive living. He's saying love. And he's not just calling me to love my friends, my family, my coworkers. He's calling me to love my enemies. And that, if you study many of the world religions, is not found in any of them. Because this is a proactive love. It's a life of love. He went further than that in John 13:35, and he challenged us and said, you want to witness? You want to share the gospel? You want to be called a son of God and wear the WWJD bracelet in life? Here's how you do it. You love. And others, and John tells us that they will know that I'm a child of God by my love. Not by my knowledge of the word, not by how many things I attend or how many revivals I go to or how many conferences I go to. They'll know me by my love. That's the biggest WWJD bracelet we could ever wear. Let your life be known by the love of Jesus Christ. You will be known. Everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. If you love one another. He also went further and told us, and this is a hard one to hear, he actually says that we are liars if we say that we love God but yet don't love others. 1 John 4:20, whoever claims to love God, yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. Who's my neighbor? Who's my brother and sister? Everybody that comes into my world, including my enemies. Including my enemies. And I'm so thankful that Jesus lived the example for you and I, because we rejected him. In the world's eyes, we were his enemy. And yet he loved in such a powerful way. He gave his own life for his enemies. In fact, at the end of his life, he lived this out. When he could get angry, when he could curse those men that are cursing him, when he could curse those men that are killing him, he says what? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they've done. You want to talk about an example of love? Is that he had more love for those people in the middle of being killed by those people. Father, forgive them. Please, that's why I'm here, he was saying. Father, forgive them. Father, forgive them. Here we go again. This whole series we've talked about that it's a sermon about activation. It's not about knowing just the word or memorizing the word. That's all part of my walk. It's not about speaking lovely things to my family or people that I'm struggling with or enemies or whoever it is. It's about living love. And that's tough, right? That's tough. But he's calling us to a life of love. And he tells me, Michael, you will be known not by the sermons you speak, not by anything that I've called you to. You will be known either by love or by a lack thereof. Those people that you just can't get through to, the ones you've been praying for years. I would challenge us, have we loved them truly? Or have we done it in spurts, but then it gets real tough? He never said it was easy. He never said that every person would make this easy. He just said to love. He just said to love. He's calling us to a life of action. It's not a life of speaking it, it's a life of living it. What better way could we commit to go into the Christmas season, walking out this Christmas season, than loving? We've talked about this a lot going into this month. How many times we said, this year it's going to be about him. This year we're going to pare down our schedule. This year I'm going to not get so stressed out about presents or food or gatherings or this. It's going to be about him. And what he's saying is, okay, great. That's what it needs to be, and I'm telling you how to do it. He's saying love. In the middle of that family gathering, love. In the middle of that stressed out moment, love. In the middle of work, when that person is not loving you, love. In the middle of not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, love. In the middle of your differences in personality, culture, race, love. He's not asking us to do anything that he didn't do and doesn't do for you and I on a daily basis. How many times have we gotten off track and focused on our schedule and he's loved us? How many times have we failed at something and gone to him and asked, Lord, forgive me because I need your grace in this moment, and he's loved us? How many times some of us have turned our back on him and he has loved us? He's calling us to a life of love. He's calling us to, they called it the Joy Express. And you can say, well, Michael, joy and love. Listen, I want to challenge us that if you love him and he loves you and you know that and you know your identity in him, very simply, that character quality should be coming out of us. And we've talked about that a lot. Is that simple statement, if you're saying you love Jesus, your face ought to show it. In the middle of life and everything going on, saying love. And I could have gone much deeper into this, but I didn't feel like I wanted to. I felt like our kids did a great job of sharing with us the golden rule. Sometimes we don't need another perfect sermon or this. We need to listen to the children that God's placed in our life. Sometimes we need to slow down and listen to them. This morning we're on the way to church and we started saying, hey, what are we joyful for? What are we thankful for this morning? And we began listing things. And I hear one of my youngest daughters say, I'm thankful for Jesus, and I'm thankful that today somebody might come to this church that doesn't know him and they get to hear what we're saying today. And immediately as I'm driving, what do you think that does to me? God, don't let me get distracted. Don't let me get distracted on whatever's going to happen this morning. That's exactly why we're here, is to worship him, to draw into him, to love others, to be a light. We've shared this, that in this message series, we've learned that when Jesus said, when I'm here on this earth, he called himself the light. But then he did an awesome thing that when he left, he transferred that responsibility. And he said, I'm not letting you off the hook. And when he was called back up to heaven, he said, you are the light. Now that I am leaving you, I'm leaving someone that you will need. And you are the light. And then he says, you will be known by your love. Your light is the love of Jesus Christ. Or our darkness is the lack thereof. Love is the answer to all. And we've heard that so many times in life. We've heard it said in so many ways. We probably have plaques and pictures hanging on our walls that say it in some shape or form. But I'm going to tell you what, it's a lot easier to hang a picture on a wall than to live it out. And he's calling us to do much more than putting a picture on the wall or having a Facebook post that says love. He's saying, listen, you can put all that down. You might not ever have another sign that says love or joy again. If you live it, that's enough for me. Because you're the biggest sign, biggest billboard that I have on this earth, is you showing the love of Jesus Christ. What would change in our homes as we go into Christmas time? How much less stress would there be? How much less issues would there be? Relationship stuff. How much less whatever we're walking through. Christmas can bring up all kinds of hurts. Christmas can bring up all kinds of different memories if we allow it to, if we make Christmas about that. We can make Christmas about grief. We can make Christmas about stress. We can make all of it, and we can say, well, this time of the year is just really hard for me. Listen, I understand grieving, and I understand hard things that happen in life. But Christmas isn't about any of those things. And listen, if we take our eyes off of him for 1 second, those things will rush in. And he wants you to know that he is such a big, powerful Father that he has a way for you to walk through this season, whether you're in Teen Challenge, away from families, or grieving a loved one lost, or going through all kinds of other trials and burdens. He wants you to know that he is a big enough God that he has a Christmas season for you where you can find joy and peace and love and happiness. And he is right at the middle of all of that. He loves you. He loves me. He's asking us to love each other. He says, listen, through your love of me, I'm asking you to love others. And it's impossible if you don't understand your identity in him. We've started that series, Supernatural Ways of Royalty. We've talked about that subject many different times, our identity in Jesus Christ. I need to understand who he is as my Heavenly Father. I need to understand who I am as his son, son of a king. And when I understand my identity, I understand your identity. You get that? When I understand my identity, I will be able to understand who you are in him. And it's a lot harder to not live out that love when I understand who I am in him and I understand who you are. He's asking us to love.